Thank you for tuning in tonight. This is our inaugural Fireside Chat. I'm Steve Glazer. I'm a member of the Shelby County Democratic Party Executive Committee for County Commission District 1, and I'll be your moderator tonight. The Shelby County Democratic Party has put together a series of chats to help engage the constituents in each county commission district by working to keep them informed. We're going to highlight a different district each week so voters can hear from elected officials and community leaders in an attempt to engage the voters of that district as well as others. But before we introduce our guests tonight, we'll hear from our Shelby County Democratic Party Shelby County Democratic Party Chairman, Mr. Michael Harris. Michael.
I'm so excited to be speaking to you all for our inaugural Fireside Chat series discussion. This is episode 1, and we'll be hosting a fireside discussion every week through April 25th. And our goal, of course, is just to connect our constituents with those individuals who are elected to represent our interests. And so we're excited about that. This week, of course, features District 1, 2, and 3. But on next week, I believe that date is February 25th, we'll be featuring a discussion focusing on Districts 4 and 5. And our special guests for next week are Senator Sarah Kyle, Councilwoman Rhonda Logan, and County Commissioner Michael Whaley. So we thank you so much for tuning in. And at this time, we'll just jump right in and get started. So Stephen Glazer, we are back in your hands.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. As he said, tonight we're focused on County Commission Districts 1, 2, and 3, and that's the north part of Shelby County. Our guests tonight are supposed to be Sarah Kyle, Larry Miller, and Dwayne Thompson. Sarah Kyle, Senate District 30, is stuck in Nashville and doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection, so she is not able to get there. Get with us. We do have State Representative Dwayne Thompson, Legislative District 96, and hopefully by now, we were having some technical difficulties, State Representative Larry Miller from Legislative District number 88. I guess what we'd like to do to start out with is, Dwayne, let's start with you if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've got going on in the legislature this year.
Well, I'm, represent District 96, which is essentially the Cordova district. I represent most of Cordova, small part of Germantown. Native Memphian, been here all my life, and just trying to, try to get good laws passed and keep some of the bad stuff from being passed. And of course, being in the minority in the state legislature, we're finding ourselves playing defense a good part of the time. And I've got a few bills I'm promoting, and taking on some Senate bills as well. And I'm a member of the Insurance Committee, the Commerce Committee, both of them sort of business related, as well as transportation. I'm new on the Transportation Committee, and I'm also new on the Fiscal Review Committee, a committee that looks at and advises on state contracts, especially those with those no bid contracts we hear about all the time.
Okay. Are you finding much bipartisanship with the Republicans in control of the House?
Do I? Well, to be quite honest, not a lot right now. It goes in cycles. My first term, we worked together pretty well. Then with Speaker Cassida was the speaker for 1 year and had to resign due to his own scandal. And then now Cameron Sexton took over as speaker. We have hopes that maybe this coming as the session moves on, that we'll be able to work together a little bit better.
Well, that's great.
We have been.
Well, I hope for your sake and our sake that you can.
Yeah, really. Thank you. Me too.
Let's see. Did we get Larry Miller connected? Larry, are you there?
Hold on.
Oh, how are you, sir?
All righty.
I'm about to bring you in.
Good to see you. What we'd like to do is have you tell the folks a little bit about you and the district you represent, 88, and about what's going on in the legislature with you this year.
Oh, am I ready now?
If you don't mind. I mean, we're kind of informal, and so
Right.
I'm Steve Glazer, and I'm the moderator. How are you, sir?
It's taken me a while to get connected. We finally got it with the technology. Pretty cool.
I'm technology challenged myself, so I know what you mean. But tell us a little bit about you.
I'm not blaming all of that on me now, but that's another story. I'm here. That's a good thing. State Representative Larry Miller, elected in 1992, represent District 88, which includes Midtown, North Memphis, Fraser, and parts of Bartlett. I am a retired firefighter. Keep that in mind. Elected in 1992.
That's a long time.
That's been a while. And I think I've been through at least 5 governors. I've sat down with at least 5 governors at this point in time in my political career. And certainly want to send a thank you out to all of my constituents that have supported me through the years. I'm a retired firefighter. So I've been in government service all of my life for the most part.
Well, you must be doing something right, or they wouldn't keep sending you back to Nashville.
That's what they say. So currently in Nashville, I serve on Finance, Ways, and Means Committee, Appropriation Subcommittee, and then also on local government. That's full committee, and local and city subcommittees. So that's pretty much what's going on now.
Well, let me tell the folks about what we're going to do today. The format we're going to do is that we've got some questions that we went out into the community and asked people what they thought was important to them. And we've kind of curated those down because a lot of them were duplicates and come up with a list. And what we'd like to do is pose the same question to both of you and give you a minute or two to answer, if that's okay. That work for you, Larry?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And if people in the audience have questions, they can type them in and we'll curate those as well so that you don't get those just off the cuff. But if somebody has a good point or wants to make a good point that we haven't already covered, then we'll certainly include that at the end. So when we talk to folks in the district, the thing that they had the most interest in was education. And the number one question was, what legislation have you sponsored or supported to ensure our students, teachers, schools, and resources and staff get the resources they need during the pandemic? You want to go first? Since I got you on Larry, you want to go first?
Oh, well, your question, what legislation have I personally sponsored?
Or support?
Oh, I support a number of educational legislation. Matter of fact, last week, a number of education bills were actually filed, and it could be up to 50 or 100, if not more, of those education bills. Yeah, that's what I usually say. Whoa, why so many bills?
Yeah.
But some of those bills are quite controversial. For example, one of those bills that were actually sponsored by Senator Kelsey would simply say that the governor would make the decision whether schools should go back into personal learning as opposed to virtual learning.
Doesn't that kind of defeat the school board?
I certainly don't support that bill and will do whatever I can to help defeat it if it comes my way. And what I mean by that, chances are, based on the committees that I serve on, it will not come through the education committee, but if it passes out of the subcommittee of education, full committee, then it will very well make its way to the finance, ways and means committee, which I do serve on. And I will certainly be there to try to do everything I can to defeat that type of bill. But from an educational standpoint, I could give you a list, and hopefully your listeners are paying attention, and if they can write this down. I'm just going to throw some bill numbers out that I did a little research today in reference to education. For an example, House Bill 0814. You just take that down, have an opportunity to go and look at those bills, and these are some of the bills that I certainly will be supporting. House Bill 1289. And rather than giving you the caption or going through exactly what those bills entail, I'll continue giving you a few more. House Bill 1296. And then there's a House Bill 1331. But those bills, in my estimation, supports public education. They deals with that fact of the pandemic. What can we do legislatively as it relates to the pandemic?
Well, that was kind of the gist of the whole question.
Right.
I guess we ought to give Dwayne a chance to give his 2 cents on this one.
Okay. Well, I do largely the same thing. I don't serve on either the education committees, but I try to pay attention to what bills are filed and what might be coming down the pike, and also listen to my fellow Democrats on the education committee and what they some of their thoughts too. I guess one bill, and frankly, don't ask me to explain it because I can't right now, but I agreed to sponsor Bill HB 990, which was initiated by Senator Ackberry, and I've got to really talk to her staff to understand it a little better. But when we had our special session, the legislature passed some education bills that the governor wanted, and they're finding a few problems with a couple of them right now. Then
surprise.
Yeah, no, a lot of the cost involved, and that's a problem with special sessions because you're rushed to get something passed, and you don't have time to really deliberate over the bills and have people from different points of view come and testify and everything. But in any case, this particular bill looks like maybe it might give a way to delay some of the bad things that we passed earlier in this year in special session, and in things that they're finding very difficult to administer and very costly to local education districts too, not necessarily to the state, and those are some of the things that's something I know that we'll be working on, as well as some of those bills that Larry mentioned earlier too.
Don't they call those unfunded mandates? Something like that.
Yeah, they love to do that.
Yeah, well, one of the things people wanted to know about, and we'll go the opposite way. Dwayne, I was going to let you answer that one first, and then we'll get Larry. With the coronavirus still raging, we still certainly got a lot in Shelby County.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, it's on a decline, but it's not on a steep decline. People want to know what the reasoning behind the legislation to require schools to resume in-person classes. Is there a valid reason for that?
I don't know if I can give a valid reason. The
All right.
reason that it's the idea from the administration and from its sponsors in the House and Senate is that it's that students are suffering terribly, not being able to go back to class, learning through the virtual classes and everything. And they cite a lot of information and numbers and everything and surveys that they say the reason for it is. I think we could probably find all of that debatable. Frankly, since the last two LEAs to actually have virtual classes were, guess what, Davidson County and Shelby County. That sort of raises that flag to me that they're just wanting to have another bill to affect our two counties,
Right.
the two largest counties, and then the two most Democratic counties in the state.
Right. Two very blue counties. What
Yeah.
are they making any provisions for the personal protective equipment for students or teachers or staff? Any money for that?
Not that I'm aware of. Possibly Larry might know more about that than I, but I'm not aware of any.
Okay, well, let's ask Larry.
Well, Steve, what I would say, I think parents, teachers, educators, elected officials, the superintendent, I think one thing everyone can agree on, and that's we would like for students to be back in school, in person. I think we can agree on that. The question is, how do we accomplish that? And how do we keep teachers and students and everyone safe from the virus?
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to continue the virtual learning. I agree with you.
Exactly. Now, to your question, what is motivating, as Dwayne said, the Republicans to come up with, okay, we're going to literally force you back if we can. And the issue of safety becomes secondary. So the question is, what's first? What's the primary reason?
Primary, sure.
Is it political?
They seem to think it is.
That's debatable. Does it have an economic factor involved with it? Probably so. But from my perspective, I want to follow the science. I want local elected officials as well as local health officials to make that determination and that decision, and not the governor and not the Republican supermajority in the House and the Senate.
Because it seems like the school district in Shelby County would be a whole lot different than the school district in the Gibson County or in Lake County. And so
that's true.
One decision is going to affect those counties differently. So I understand what you're saying. But is there any provision for personal protective equipment? Is there any bill to help them with that?
I would think during the special session there were probably some dollars within the overall budget.
Okay.
And that may include some protections for that. But then keep in mind that during the CARES Act, there were millions of federal dollars, state dollars that these have, and they've been using those dollars for those purposes, protective equipment, et cetera, supplies, and making all the provisions or as much as they possibly can. So there's been some dollars that's already out there in the millions.
Okay. Dwayne, do you want to add anything else?
That could be the case. I'm not. Larry would see it first on the finance committee, but I'm not. They could have some dollars for it. I'm just not aware of that right now.
Well, one of the things teachers wanted to know was, would you support a supplement to the basic education program, the BEP, for teachers to reimburse them for out-of-pocket classroom expenses that are related to COVID. Obviously they have to go out and get their wipes and gel and put up barriers and those kind of things. Would you support money for each teacher to increase that?
Now, are we talking about out of expense for COVID related expenses?
It started that way, but I think some of them were just talking about the many myriad of out of pocket expenses
they pay out of pocket.
Right. That's teachers have.
Now, my understanding is that we increased that. There is a certain amount that's given. Now, teachers, they're on the receiving end, so they could probably tell us better than anyone. But my understanding is they do get an amount to help them on that. It's not adequate. It's not enough, but it was increased a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
And somehow I'm thinking $200, but I could be wrong about that. Now, I think I think we should have a better supplemental system to help teachers, not just in the BEP, but all teachers. You got to remember that not all teachers are covered under the BEP. We have 10,000 or so that are not, and I think they all need to be receive some assistance on these out-of-pocket expenses that they go out and voluntarily purchase on their own time to help kids to learn better. There is for the advantage of the kids.
I'm a husband of a retired school teacher, and so I've seen it firsthand. And
there you go.
Teachers spend that money willingly and lovingly. They want to help their children. They want to help their students, but it just seems like they kind of get the short end of the stick sometimes.
Steve, did you say that you were a retired teacher, or you?
My wife is a retired teacher, 31 years.
Okay, well,
I did some high school coaching for about 18 years. So, but that was as an adjunct. I wasn't a member of the school. I wasn't a teacher.
Well, I would certainly support that supplemental pay, and as Dwayne mentioned, I'm not sure if there's a program that's currently in place. I don't. Would you know that if teachers are receiving anything, Steve, at this point?
It's my understanding that they do receive. They have received, but it's very small. It's like $50, something like that.
Okay. So
and then they take taxes out of that. And so,
gosh,
Yeah, I think that is a good question. It's something that we certainly need to look at increasing. There's no question about that. And as Dwayne mentioned, it goes beyond the BEP. Now what that increase would look like, and what that would look like in the budget, I'm not sure at this point, because I'm not sure exactly how many teachers would that impact. But even if it was at 50, then the question is, how much would we want to increase that and think that we could get it actually passed in a budget and get the support of the governor?
Do you think there's support on the Hill for that?
I think the conversation it's an open conversation at this point. I think it's timely. Matter of fact, it should have been discussed during a special session, which to my knowledge it necessarily wasn't, but it should have been, but it's not too late now to even try to submit in a supplemental budget, governor's supplemental budget, to try to look at an increase.
Okay, that'd be great. I've got a question from somebody who's watching tonight. They want to know, how could it be legal to withhold state funding from public school districts by the governor?
It may not be.
Okay. I think that's the gist of their question. Timothy Harris wanted to know that.
Well, I would say this, that even if they were to pass that, and I say if they were to pass that, certainly because I would be one that would not be in support, then you can look toward a lawsuit.
I would think so.
Yes, absolutely. I just don't think it's constitutional. And sometimes I think so many of these bills that are introduced are idle threats, but you certainly can't take it for granted. I've been there long enough to know that once some of these individuals get something on their minds, they are serious and they push for it. So we'll be there to try to defend that kind of idea.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense.
Dwayne, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, just for the record, I'm not supporting anything like that either. I pretty much don't support bills that single out certain counties, especially when it singles out Shelby County.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it seems like it's almost like a punishment because we voted blue.
In it too.
One of the things that we've noticed, and this is another question, is an awful lot of people have had to go back into the workforce, and they have during the pandemic, many families are struggling to find a way to pay for daycare and to find quality daycare. Is there anything in the legislature this year that would help address that problem?
I have a bill, which is House Bill 460, and it is to increase direct payments that are made by TANF. TANF, is a temporary assistant.
Yes.
For needy families. And currently, the state pretty much is sitting on $750 million. So there are several pieces of legislation that's being introduced, both by Republicans and Democrats. But my particular legislation increases the current direct payment, which is $226,240, but it sets it at $500. So that's one thing I would want to try to do to increase those direct payments. Now, one bill that's being introduced by Senator Watson, Finance Chairman in the Senate, and by Representative Hall, basically what their bill is saying is that we will cap those dollars at $191 million, which currently that's what we're receiving annually from the federal government. But they want to go into the communities statewide and set up third parties that are in the business of assisting and servicing the community.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. But I also think there should be an increase in the direct payment where you actually put dollars in the hands of the recipients. And that's going to be an issue. I'm thinking it will be an issue with the legislature, but that's what my bill would do. Okay.
So we do have some hope of we got a bill pending anyway.
Yes. Yes.
So that's always positive. At least we're stepping in that direction.
Yes.
Dwayne, do you want to say anything about the daycare and access and payment for daycare?
Well, what he was bringing up was the TANF funds, and if you're not familiar with it, the federal government gives the state a block grant, each state a block grant of TANF funds every year, and for several years, Tennessee has not spent all of those funds. And as a result, we built up a reserve of I think the last figure I saw was $740 million, the largest in the nation, larger than any other state. And we can use that money for a lot of our needs, including daycare, assisting families with daycare, low-income families especially. And I'm supportive of course, Larry's bill, and I would also like to encourage maybe in the bill to take care of those TANF funds, to spend them down. Perhaps
what is it they're holding them
for daycare?
What is it that they're holding them for? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's
Well,
sort of a minor scandal, I think.
well, Steve, what is one of the rationale or reasons that the governor said it's for emergency purposes. We want to have those dollars in cases of dire emergencies. And of course, when
he looked outside.
when he made that statement, and that's been several months ago, we were in an emergency, and we called that the pandemic.
Yeah. So I don't understand that. The other thing was I heard this, and I may be off the mark on my figure, that we were sitting on a $3 billion rainy day fund, and that our teachers' pay is 47th in the nation. Now what can we do to help bridge that gap? Take some of that rainy day money and let's get some increase the teacher pay. That's one of the questions people ask.
Yes.
How do we do it?
Well,
Don't take a Democratic legislature.
Steve, I've often said elections have, well, they have consequences, and I think you could get Democrats on board to introduce legislation to use some of those dollars for exactly that. But there will be resistance, obviously, and the resistance have the numbers to not accept a recommendation coming from Democrats to take some of those dollars from the rainy day funds and increase teacher salaries, do all we can, fully fund BEP. That's always a question of when you say fully fund BEP, how do you define that? And you define that by saying we're 47, as you just said, in the nation.
Yeah.
So there's a reason behind that.
Well, this kind of leads into the school voucher question. Can I assume that neither of you support school vouchers?
No.
No, you don't, or no, I can't.
No, I don't support
Okay.
school vouchers, and certainly when the school voucher was passed, under the circumstances and the conditions that it was passed, it's still under a cloud, and we're still dealing with the after effects of that.
Okay.
Which are pretty negative at this point.
So, because to me, that would have a negative impact on the amount of money you have to spend for public education.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty costly. The voucher instituting the voucher program.
And once again, it's impacting two counties.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. and Davidson.
And back 100,000 years ago, I worked in the legislature for a little while. I interned there, and one of the things I picked up was that it was my understanding that you couldn't have laws that affected one county over another. Now they did it by population sometimes to try to get around that, but my understanding was our Constitution doesn't like you to limit laws, statewide law that just goes to a particular county. Is that true, or am I off base here on it?
Yeah, you're right. Of course, the voucher bill has been ruled unconstitutional by the state court and then the state appeals court. And my understanding is that the next step will be the state Supreme Court, and we hope they will follow suit. And if so, then the governor's voucher bill is dead. Whether or not they try it again, they may or may not try to pass another one that they feel might be more constitutional. Am I still here? Hello?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I'll fill in until we get Steve and Representative Miller back on the call.
Sure. Okay.
On the discussion. And I think now is actually a really good time to let's transition and maybe answer a couple questions that we've gotten from some of our viewers.
Sure.
I'll scroll back up, and I think we may have a resolution to this one already. But Miss Amy McLaughlin Dixon asks, why are the counties surrounding us already vaccinating our teachers and we aren't already? Why were they held up, and who held it up? So what's going on with teachers getting vaccinated in Tennessee?
Honestly, I really am not aware of what other counties are doing in that regard. I did not think there was a comprehensive program to vaccinate teachers in some of the smaller counties. I think I may have heard Tipton might have been doing that. I was happy and sad about one thing. They delayed all of the vaccinations this week, last week and this week. I was sad because I was among those who were supposed to get them, but since they couldn't do the regular vaccinations, they gave them for people in the Shelby County and the suburban school systems to be vaccinated. Why aren't we doing already? Probably because the state health department has not designated teachers in a higher priority than they have. That's being discussed. I hope possibly they can change that. I know that President Biden's administration is saying that teachers should be a higher priority than they are. And I'm hoping maybe the state health department will change their minds on that.
Okay. And let's sort of take one more.
Sure. Thank you. It's a good question.
There are so many good ones here. I want to make sure that we sort of spread it out. And this one is kind of going in a different direction. Let me scroll back to it. Okay, so this question is posed by George Dempsey Summers, and he asks, what discussions or is there a bill that has been filed that will directly affect and improve District 88, especially Fraser in North Memphis?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a Larry Miller question there.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think we have Larry back. Let me get him back on screen. I think we have Stephen Glazer back as well. Let's get him back on.
All right. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties beyond our control.
And just to
you want to go forward with that question?
To get everybody back on par, what we did is we went to some questions that were being asked by our viewers. And the question on the screen has been posed by George Dempsey Summers. And it's, what discussions or is there a bill that has been filed that will directly affect and improve District 88, especially Fraser and North Memphis? And so I'll take myself out of the screen, and Stephen Glazer will be back in your hands. Larry Miller.
All right, sir. We'll do our best. Now, sorry, I left you, gentlemen. I apologize.
It's all right.
Can you read that question on the bottom, Larry? What discussions or is there a bill that has been filed that will directly affect and improve District 88, especially Fraser and North Memphis, education-wise, I assume? Can you hear me? I don't think.
Okay,
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, are you with me?
Trying to get there. All right. I lost you for a while, but
I did too. It knocked me right off.
Okay. What was the question?
Is there discussion or a bill that has been filed that will directly affect and improve District 88, especially Fraser and North Memphis? And I assume that means in education, but I don't know that.
Oh, well, yeah. Part of the special session as it relates to education, that's what the special session was.
Right.
One thing it's going to do is increase, and it's always not enough, but it's going to increase teacher salary. We're going to put several $1 million into lost learning. So there are a number of things from an educational perspective, and that's still not over. As I said earlier, you probably have over 100 bills that's going to impact education. Some of those bills will be good legislation, others will not be. Not going into the details of exactly what all of that entails, but yeah, it will certainly impact Fraser and District 88 and education. Because and what people have to understand, when we're on the state level, the best we try to do, if we're going to impact education, you try to do the best you can statewide. You don't pick out a district and from an educational standpoint and say, okay, this is only going to impact Fraser in a positive way. Okay. You would like to think if it's a good bill dealing with education, it's going to impact the entire state,
right?
And everybody. So yeah.
Okay. To shift gears just a little bit, I skipped a question, and I'm sure they're pulling their hair out saying, why didn't he ask that question? Because of the pandemic, it's caused a lot of parents to have to stay home with their children, and taken a lot of women out of the workforce in record numbers. Is there anything can be done to help women with the daycare? I guess we talked a little bit about that with the daycare and improving the funding for it, but to get women back into the workforce.
Okay, now when you say to get women back into the workforce.
Well, many families have had to stay home with their children because they were distance learning. And usually that's the woman. I'm not saying it always is, but certainly it generally falls heavier on women than it does men. And so they've had to leave jobs. And so we're wondering, the people were wondering, is there something we can do to help address that?
Well, I would like to think that so many of the women that had to leave their job because of the pandemic, that they could certainly apply for unemployment. I would hope and think that that's one thing that they're doing.
Yes.
And of course, on a federal level, when we talk about the new president, the new administration, and what they're attempting to do now is to pass legislation that will have some direct financial impact, certainly to the women that we're talking about now.
Okay.
So there are a number of things that we are attempting to do, both on the state level as well as the federal level.
Okay, Dwayne, I feel like we've kind of neglected you a little bit. Let's get you in here, talk about all this.
I pretty much have to reflect what Larry was saying. I'm not personally familiar with any specific bills out there that would address this problem, but I would like to know about them and try to promote them as much as I can. Of course, sign on as a co-sponsor, but also see if we can help to advance them.
Well, let me shift gears on you here a little bit. The next set of questions the people were concerned about was healthcare. And they want to know, are you in favor of the expansion of Medicare to provide medical services for the uninsured?
Make us a big yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about
for
as opposed to a block grant? How does the block grant help us, or does it?
Well, in my opinion, the block grant, they've tried to dress it up as much as they could. They said they modified it to the point where it's not really a block grant, and it's going to help to save the state a lot of money, which, according to what they said, the administration and the leadership, that they would use that extra money to make health care even better in Tennessee. But there's always the possibility of them using being able to cut services and cut medical services in one way or the other through the block grant program, where versus the current system. And
So you favor the current system over the block grant?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd rather have the current system or the block grant, but we also need Medicaid expansion now. They also, and they're never clear on this, but there's also the possibility we could expand Medicaid. Well, it says Medicare on my sheet here, but it's Medicaid.
Medicaid, true.
They can expand Medicaid even if we are instituting the block grant system. They're not necessarily one or the other. I'm just thinking that block grants as a whole they're suspicious. They're there to
the money's not earmarked for anything.
Save money, and there's always that threat by giving state officials more leeway to minister the program, that they could cut services actually for needy families.
Yeah. Just for my edification, when we're talking about Medicaid, we're talking about TennCare. Is that correct?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Larry?
Yes, I would follow up. Affordable health care was passed in 2010, President Obama administration. And since that time, the state of Tennessee, Republicans have refused to expand Medicaid at the tune of over $1 billion a year. And I've always been in support of Medicaid expansion. Our Democratic colleagues have always fought for expanding it. We just thought there was money, Tennessee taxpayer dollars, that if we were not receiving those dollars, then those dollars would probably go to some other state.
Right. But we refused them.
Yes, and in reference to the block grant, they passed it. They passed it right before, at the last moment, a few weeks before the election, actually. And now we have to see if the Biden administration will support.
Well, that was one of the other questions that was posed to us was, do you favor Medicare for all single payer program? Now, I know that's a federal program. It's not a state program, but is that something you would be in favor of?
I would. Absolutely. Because what it does is, at the end, it says you have access to health care. Right. And affordable health care. You can afford it and you have access to it.
And you can have preventative health care.
And preventative, absolutely. And I think at some point, that's where we all should try to go. That's the position that this country needs to be in.
Larry, what do you think? I mean, sorry, Dwayne, what do you think? I apologize.
Okay. Well, I think that health care should be a right, not a privilege, and that we should work towards 100% coverage from everyone. Now, I'm not sure that the Medicare model is the best. I'm not 100% opposed to it, but I know if you look at, we're the U.S. is the only country, only advanced economy in the world that does not guarantee health care to all of its citizens. But if you look at other countries, you find a lot of different configurations, and some are better than others. Looked at, for instance, Germany and France both have a healthcare system that includes private companies, but also they with the government support, and it actually seems to work better with It's a lot more efficient and a lot more cost effective. So
Right.
I'd like to. So I won't say 100% yes, but that's my goal, is to have everyone covered under health care.
Isn't that kind of what the Affordable Care Act tried to do, was to blend the public and private?
It's similar, not the same, but similar.
Okay. I think we lost Larry. I'm sorry to say. Let me make sure I've talked to, would you support the increased access to mental health services and women's health services, and how would you accomplish that?
Oh, absolutely, I would. Well, actually, I do have a bill that won't do that directly, but indirectly, it actually will improve mental health services statewide by having Tennessee enter into the compact, the interjurisdictional compact, with other states. About half of the states have it now. I want Tennessee to join that, and what that'll do is help so we can use telehealth for mental health services a lot more effectively. That mental health professionals, we don't have to worry about crossing the border and
Licensing, that kind of thing.
and licensing and everything. It's going to make it a lot better from that end. But besides that, yes, I think we definitely should make sure that certain services are definitely guaranteed under health, not just TennCare, but other private health systems as well, and operate in Tennessee.
Well, Larry's back with us. We keep going in and out. The question I asked Dwayne was, would you support an increase in the access to mental health and women's health services? And if you do, how would you accomplish that?
Well, I mean, off the surface, yes, I would support it financially. And it all goes back to what's currently in the governor's budget as it relates to mental health. And how do we increase those dollars to impact the participants and the recipients? And sitting on a finance committee, that's always the question. How much resources, how much dollars are enough dollars to make a positive impact?
Yeah.
And that's always a debate. And quite often when you're dealing with a very conservative legislature, and I can very well be a conservative physical,
Sure.
But if the dollars are there and the dollars can be used to support and help our communities, then we need to spend those dollars for those purposes. And it goes back to, sitting on the TANF dollars in the millions, and even going back to the block grant. Is that an example of, if we had the block grant dollars coming into the state of Tennessee, what is saying that we wouldn't do the same thing?
Right. Just sit on it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I'll switch gears with you here a little bit now, because the next set of questions, and we're pushing on time, I think, a little bit. So I'd like to kind of almost do like a little lightning round. If you can give me a quick answer. The question, we're talking about criminal justice reform. Do you favor private prisons, and would you support a ban of private prisons in Tennessee?
Yes.
yes, I would support a ban, and
Okay.
I've never understood, because maybe I haven't studied it. How are you in the business of making a profit for incarcerating people? How do you?
If it can be, well, how they do it. They cut services, they cut corners. Anyway.
Well,
Healthcare.
And they fill beds. or they're not against
Right.
those beds. So,
Exactly right.
Well, and private prisons are accountable to the shareholders, not to the people of Tennessee.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Do you favor non-incarceration sentences for non-violent crimes? No jail for no violence.
Basically, yeah.
mhm. I think that's something that we should do. Should
I
study.
think we need to look more into that and advance it as much as possible.
Okay, the next one's tricky. It talks about cannabis. Do you favor decriminalizing the possession of cannabis?
But I don't know why you said it was tricky. Well, not for me. I support it. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
I can agree to that.
Well, the second part of the question is, should we legalize it and tax it?
Yes, legalize it and tax it. Is that your question?
Yes. Is that
Yes.
something? Okay.
I'll just say for medical purposes, yes, for medical cannabis. I'm
Okay.
not quite in the recreational part yet.
Okay.
And I'll just add, Steve, we're bordered by 8 states, and I think several of those states are either doing either recreational and medical, or medical, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And,
Right.
and that's just like a number of other issues that we're not talking about, that we're bordered by so many states, and these states are
Reaping the
thinking
benefits.
outside the box. They're a
Yeah.
little bit more progressive than what we are.
In terms of progression, what can be done to get broadband internet access to people in rural areas of Tennessee? Can we do anything?
Yes, there are several $1 million, or, not knowing the exact figures, that's in the governor's budget. And last year's budget, there was dollars, several million, for that purpose, broadband expansion. And I think that's something that has bipartisan support.
Good. That's
one
kind of,
thing
it's
that
almost
has
like healthcare.
Yeah.
Everybody ought to be able to have some. This is the lightning round, so I'm going to go quick. How about you?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree with Larry.
So let me pose this one to you, and then he can agree with you.
Maybe not.
Well, you never know. What can we do to improve our infrastructure in Tennessee, specifically our roads and bridges?
Well, we did do something. My first term, we passed the Improve Act. The Improve Act, of course, people think of it as the gas tax, and it increased gas by a few pennies a gallon. I think 4 cents for cars and 10 cents for trucks. And that was meant to go straight to infrastructure. And I think it's helped a lot. Now, the only thing incidentally, it passed with almost unanimous Democratic support. Republicans were split 50-50 on it. And so Democrats are the reasons we have funding for our roads and highways and bridges and all other infrastructure. The only problem is that in the process of the sausage making process of making this bill, they actually reduced the amount of funding a lot, the amount of fees to fund it, and it's the original bill was going to fund infrastructure for 25 years, but now it's down to about 4 or 5 years. So we may be coming up against some of these problems in the very near future. I know I spoke to someone, one of the lobbyists who is involved in this, and they're going to be pushing for another infrastructure bill very soon. They don't know if Governor Lee will like it or not, but we'll see.
Okay. Larry,
it all takes money.
Lightning round. I would say that the President Biden, and I think there would be some bipartisanship on infrastructure nationally, and certainly transportation and roads would be involved in whatever that legislation would look like. And I would only encourage Tennesseans, the governor, as well as the rest of us to be in partnership, to be part of that conversation, especially when those dollars are when they talk about the dollars and amount of dollars, and Tennessee having some of the best roads in the country. I think that's something that the governor will be very upfront about improving the infrastructures of roads and transportation in the state.
So you think he might be in favor of that? So
yeah, I think
good.
so. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense to me, but we got an awful lot of interstate comes through the state, and
Absolutely.
an awful lot of roads. So
yes.
Question from the group is: do you favor term limits?
I several years ago I introduced a bill to limit the term of office for legislators as well as for state senators. I'm trying to remember exactly. I wanted to give legislators 2 4-year terms, and I think senators 2 6-year terms or something. But of course, the bill went nowhere. I think elected officials are, in reference to a majority, would be opposed to term limits. There's no question about it. But then again, I would be in support of federal lawmakers in term limits, no question. But
okay, Dwayne.
No, I know they're real popular, but I would oppose them. I think the thing we have to look at more is, and this is on the national level initially, is campaign finance reform. When we're restricted on, or we have regulations on how much money we can spend on campaigns, I think the term limit question will take care of itself. We'll have candidates incumbents have to run on their records. So,
And not just the funding from the lobbyists.
Anyway, but hopefully I would. But we run the records, and we would have more of an equal playing field in that regard. And I think that's the real problem, and something we need to address before we go into term limits.
Just off the cuff, do you think on the federal level that there'll be a push to get rid of Citizens United to reform elections?
Possibly, but it's going to be difficult with the current Supreme Court. But
True.
That's, you never can tell.
Okay. Well, let me pose one more to you anyway, and I think we're about to wrap up here in a few minutes. Actually, there's a couple more questions, but one of them is that State Senate Bill 29, the state would ban local governments from requiring police officers, firefighters, and other first responders from living in the municipal or corporate limits that they serve. It would tell the cities and counties that they couldn't do that. Is that something the state should do?
Well, I'll go ahead and handle it first. And Larry, I might have a very slight, but not total disagreement on this. Well, first of all, I generally vote against the bills that mandate and tell local governments what they ought to do. The House sponsor of this bill, I know he's talked to me, both of us. There's a few things that he would like to put in the bill, which might make it a bit more palatable towards some of us, like restricting people, people from or first responders from other states from coming in, because we have a lot of people in Mississippi and Arkansas that would come here looking for police and fire positions. But it would restrict that, and it would also there's a couple of other things. I mean, if I have a bill that may give preference to, for instance, if they're talking about the city of Memphis, preference for city residents for these positions, then that would make it a little better for me. But anyway, those are just some of the things I'm looking at. Besides that, I'll just say I'm undecided.
Okay. Larry, what do you think?
Well, I've often had issues with state governments wanting to dictate to local government. I've seen more of that in the recent years. Some people would say that it's been for a long time as it relates to Memphis and Shelby County, but I've seen it has been more prevalent in recent years. So from a philosophical standpoint, I'm opposed to it. I think local government should make that decision, even if it was by a referendum, whether citizens would make the ultimate decision.
Okay.
Not state government.
Again, it's not a one size fits all kind of solution. I mean,
Exactly.
That's why we have local governments. That's why we have, county governments. So, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our time. And so I'm going to throw this over to Michael Harris, our chairman. And
Michael's still there?
Oh, he's here somewhere. He's always in it. All right, Michael, it's all yours.
Well, gentlemen, let's see if we can't get this situated. First, I want to say thank you so much for joining us in our first event, our first Fireside Chat discussion.
Okay.
Your participation is critically important, especially when it comes to making sure that voters are as engaged as possible, that our constituents understand what's happening at both the state and local level. And this is our way of attacking the voter education problem that we have. And what better way to do it than to connect our constituents with the persons elected to represent their interests at the various levels of government. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Well done, by the way, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But we can't close out without giving some big thank yous. There are three people especially that we want to thank. First, our moderator, Stephen Glazer, attorney Stephen Glazer. Stephen Glazer did a wonderful job. So we appreciate you.
They made it easy.
A lot of hard work and preparation that went into getting this together. And we also want to recognize Miss Barbara Williams. And she's been doing a lot of work. You don't see her on the screen, but trust me,
she's worked hard.
She has really worked very hard, and she helped bring this thing together. And we really, really appreciate all of that work and effort that she's put in. And then there's somebody on the back end also that you don't see. She's helping to operate this platform that we're using, and her name is Regina Terry. And so we are so grateful for you as well. She's done a lot of work, and we are very, very excited about how this has turned out and for what it'll look like going forward. And then the graphics that you saw that were put up on the screen, this graphic was designed by Miss Ashley Jordan. If you need to get some stuff designed, reach out to us and we'll try to connect you with her. She's done a lot of work for us, and we are very, very grateful for all of the time and energy and effort she's given to us just because she's a Democrat. And so we appreciate that. And so to all of our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Come back and join us next week on February 25th. We'll be focusing on County Commission Districts 4 and 5. We'll have 3 special guests. One will be Shelby County Commissioner Michael Whaley. We will have City Councilwoman Rhonda Logan that'll be joining us. And we'll also have State Senator Sarah Kyle. So if you're able to tune in, please do so. It'll be the same time, and we'll post the link for you so that you can access it. But in case you don't see the link, just come to our Facebook page, the Shelby County Democratic Party Facebook page, and you can find us there, or check out our YouTube page. And you can also find more information about this series and about our times and dates by going to our website at www.shelbydem.org. And we look forward to interacting with you all as much as possible as we roll out this Fireside Chat series. So thank you so much for joining us.
Mr. Chairman, may I say thank you, and thank you, Steve, and everyone.
Thank you.
Well, let me thank you, everyone, too.
And would you just send us that link of all the meetings to the legislators? Just
Absolutely, will do.
Okay.
Be very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And everybody, enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.